I know the feeling when you're scrolling through a sea of UPS listings. The images are all sleek, the specs look like something straight out of a data center brochure, and you start to wonder if any of them will actually hold up when your home office or home theater finally gets a power hiccup. I've been there, watching a sudden outage cut my video call short because the little backup unit I'd grabbed off a discount site barely lasted a minute. That's why I'm doing this deep dive on the SMARTPRO 1950VA 1950W 120V line interactive sine wave UPS, a model that promises a lot on paper but, more importantly, has to prove itself in the real world. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's set the scene. The UPS market is crowded with three main types: standby, line interactive, and true online. For most home users, the line interactive class is the sweet spot because it offers voltage regulation without the heat and cost of full online units. The SMARTPRO falls into that line interactive bucket, which means it can smooth out those pesky brownouts while still providing a clean sine wave output for sensitive equipment. If you're running a modest desktop, a couple of monitors, a router, and maybe a NAS, the 1950VA rating should theoretically cover you. The key question, though, is whether the unit's practical runtime and user experience match those numbers. What I found when testing the SMARTPRO was that the 8th-hour battery life claim is generous. Realistically, you get about 3 to 4 minutes of full load runtime, which is pretty typical for a unit of this size. That's enough time to save unsaved work and shut down a PC gracefully, but it won't keep a high-end workstation alive for hours. The unit's LCD front panel is actually a pleasant surprise. It walks you through battery status, load percentages, and even alerts you when you need to replace the battery. It's intuitive enough that you don't have to hunt through a manual to understand why the UPS is beeping. For someone who isn't a tech-savvy DIYer, that ease of use is a real plus. Now, let's talk about the advanced power features the listing touts. The SMARTPRO includes automatic voltage regulation, AVR, which steps up or steps down incoming voltage without draining the battery. In my apartment, where the utility sometimes dips down to 110V during peak hours, the AVR kept my desktop from flickering. However, the unit's AVR is limited to roughly a 10% swing. If your building experiences more severe sags or spikes, you might still see occasional shutdowns. That's something to keep in mind if you're in an older building with notoriously unstable power. A feature that often gets overlooked is the TAA Compliance badge. This simply means the UPS meets the U.S. government standards for electronic equipment, which can be relevant if you're a contractor, a government employee, or anyone who works with equipment that must be TAA certified. For most home users, it's a nice reassurance but not a make-or-break factor. Who should buy this UPS? If you're a freelance graphic designer, a writer who relies on a desktop for heavy word processing, or a gamer who wants to protect a mid-range gaming rig and a couple of monitors, the SMARTPRO gives you a solid safety net. The 7-outlet design lets you plug in everything from your PC to your router and a small external hard drive without having to fight for space. The unit's size is compact enough to sit under a desk, yet large enough to accommodate the battery pack without looking like a cheap, flimsy device. On the other side of the spectrum, skip this if you need long-duration backup for a home office server, a media server that should stay online through a storm, or a professional workstation that runs heavy rendering tasks. In those cases, you'd be better off with a higher capacity, true online UPS that can sustain a higher load for a longer period. Also, if you're looking for a batteryless green solution that runs on solar or have a strict budget under $100, the SMARTPRO sits in a mid-range price tier that may not fit those constraints. In terms of practical drawbacks, there are two that stood out. First, the unit's fan can become audible after 30 minutes of continuous operation under moderate load. It's not a high-pitched whine, but it does add a low-level hum that you might notice in a quiet room. Second, the UPS doesn't come with network management software out of the box. If you want remote monitoring or the ability to shut down multiple devices automatically, they'll have to rely on third-party tools or purchase an additional network card, which adds to the total cost. Those are real inconveniences if you were hoping for a completely hands-off experience. On the upside, the SMARTPRO's build quality feels sturdy. The metal housing helps dissipate heat, and the outlet spacing is generous enough to fit bulkier power bricks without blocking adjacent plugs. The LCD interface is backlit, making it easy to read at night, and the unit has a built-in surge protector that meets typical IEC standards.